The rain hit the ground like bullets. Karen Phillips ran through the forest trying to find shelter from the storm. She had lost sight of her team 10 minutes ago when the weather turned bad. The trees on planet Dracor 7 were not like trees on Earth. They were made of crystal and metal, and they hummed with strange energy. Karen was a scientist who studied alien animals. She worked for the Earth Colonial Fleet, and this was her first mission to a new planet. Everything had been going well until the storm appeared out of nowhere. Now she was alone, cold and scared. Lightning flashed across the purple sky. Karen saw a dark opening in the rocks ahead. A cave. She ran toward it and stumbled inside, breathing hard. Water dripped from her hair and uniform. She pulled out her flashlight and turned it on. The cave was deeper than she thought. The walls sparkled with the same crystals that grew on the trees outside. Karen walked further in, looking for a dry place to sit and wait out the storm. That was when she heard it. A small, sad sound, like crying. She followed the noise around a corner and stopped. There, in a small chamber, was a nest made of soft moss and feathers. Most of it was empty, but in one corner something moved. Karen stepped closer and gasped. It was a baby dragon. Karen had read about the dragons of Dracor 7 in her mission briefing. They were supposed to be huge, dangerous creatures that could breathe lightning, but this one was tiny, no bigger than a cat. Its scales shimmered blue and silver in the flashlight beam. One of its wings was trapped under a fallen piece of crystal. The baby dragon looked at Karen with large, frightened eyes. It made that sad sound again. Karen knew she should be careful. This was an alien creature, and she did not know if it was dangerous. But she also knew it was in pain. She set down her flashlight and slowly approached the nest. The baby dragon watched her but did not try to bite or scratch. Karen examined the crystal carefully. It was heavy, but she thought she could move it. She counted to 3 in her head and lifted. The crystal rolled away. The baby dragon pulled its wing free and looked at it. The wing seemed okay, just a little bruised. Karen stepped back, expecting the dragon to run away or attack. Instead, it did something strange. It walked right up to her and pressed its small head against her leg. Karen felt something shift inside her mind. It was not painful, but it was strange, like someone had opened a door in her brain that she did not know was there. Through that door, she could feel what the dragon was feeling. Fear, relief, gratitude, and something else. Connection. The baby dragon looked up at her and made a small chirping sound. Karen smiled. She reached down slowly and touched its head. The scales felt warm and smooth. The dragon pushed against her hand like a cat. "Well, hello there," Karen said softly. "Where is your family?" The dragon tilted its head as if trying to understand her words. Then it turned and walked to the empty nest. It looked at the broken eggshells and made a sad sound. Karen understood. The other babies had hatched and left. This one had been trapped and left behind. "You are all alone too," Karen said. She sat down on the cave floor and the dragon immediately climbed into her lap. "I guess we can keep each other company until the storm passes." The dragon curled up on her legs and closed its eyes. Karen felt its emotions through that strange mental connection. It felt safe now, protected. Karen did not understand what had happened, but she felt responsible for this small creature. Hours passed. The storm finally ended. Karen's radio crackled to life. Her team was looking for her. She answered and gave them her location. Then she looked down at the sleeping dragon in her lap. "I have to go," she told it. "Your mother will come back for you." But when Karen tried to stand up, the dragon woke up and made a distressed sound. It grabbed her uniform with its small claws and would not let go. Karen tried again to leave and the dragon started crying. The sound was heartbreaking. Karen heard voices outside the cave. Her team had arrived. She walked out and the baby dragon followed her, staying close to her legs. The other scientists stared. "Is that a dragon?" one of them asked. "A baby one," Karen said. "I found it trapped in the cave. I think it imprinted on me." The team leader, a man named Peter Hayes, frowned. "We cannot take a wild animal back to the ship. It belongs here." They tried to leave the dragon behind. They walked away from the cave, but the dragon followed Karen. Peter tried to scare it away, but the dragon just hid behind Karen's legs. They tried locking it in the cave, but it cried so loudly that Karen could hear it from 100 meters away. She felt its panic through their connection, and it made her feel sick. Finally, after 2 hours of trying, Peter gave up. "Fine, bring it back to the ship. But you are responsible for it, Phillips." Karen picked up the small dragon and it settled happily in her arms. She decided to name it Ember because of the way its scales glowed in the light. Back at the ship, the captain was not happy. Neither were the science officers. They argued for hours about what to do with Ember. Some wanted to study him. Others wanted to return him to the wild. But when they tried to separate Ember from Karen, both of them became sick. Karen's head hurt and her heart raced. Ember stopped eating and just cried. The ship's doctor, a woman named Helen Carter, examined them both. She discovered something amazing. Karen and Ember had formed a biological bond. Their brain waves had synchronized. Their nervous systems were connected. If they were separated for too long, both would die. The captain made a decision. Ember would stay with Karen. They would both be studied to understand this bond, and they would both be assigned to the new research station on Dracor 7. Karen held Ember in her quarters that night. The baby dragon slept peacefully, his small body warm against hers. She did not understand how this had happened, but she knew one thing. Her life had changed forever. She had found a friend in the most unexpected way, and somehow she knew that Ember would stay by her side for a very long time. 3 years had passed since Karen found Ember in that cave. The tiny dragon who once fit in her arms was now the size of a horse. His wings stretched wide enough to create shade for 4 people. His scales had grown more brilliant, shifting between blue and silver depending on his mood. Karen worked at Outpost Meridian now, a research station built on Dracor 7. She studied the dragons and learned amazing things about them. They were intelligent. They could solve problems. They communicated with each other using sounds and something like telepathy, and they were deeply connected to the planet's energy. Ember had grown up among humans, but he never forgot he was a dragon. He spent time with wild dragons, learning their ways, but he always came back to Karen. Every night he slept outside her quarters, curled up like a giant cat. Every morning he greeted her with a happy rumble that made her laugh. Life was good until the mining company arrived. Vincent Cole stepped off the transport ship with a smile that Karen did not trust. He was the director of Stellar Excavation, a corporation that wanted to mine the crystals on Dracor 7. He wore an expensive suit and spoke in a smooth voice that made promises Karen knew he would not keep. "We will be very careful," Vincent told the research team at their first meeting. "We will not disturb the wildlife more than necessary." Karen stood up. "The dragons are not wildlife. They are intelligent beings. This is their home." Vincent's smile did not change. "They are animals, Miss Phillips. Impressive animals, but animals nonetheless. We have legal rights to mine here. The Colonial Council approved our permits." "The Colonial Council does not understand what these dragons are," Karen argued. "Give me time to prove their intelligence. Then we can talk about mining." Vincent agreed, but Karen could tell he did not mean it. He was just being polite until he could do what he wanted. Over the next few weeks, Karen worked hard to document dragon intelligence. She recorded Ember solving puzzles that would challenge a human child. She filmed wild dragons working together to hunt, using tactics and planning. She showed how dragons mourned their dead and cared for their injured. Ember helped her. He seemed to understand what she was trying to do. He demonstrated his abilities for the cameras. He learned to understand dozens of human words. He even learned to draw simple symbols in the dirt to communicate. But Vincent was not impressed. "Trained animals can do tricks," he said. "That does not make them people." The mining equipment arrived. Huge machines that could cut through crystal and stone. Vincent's security forces set up camps near dragon nesting areas. The dragons became nervous. They stopped hunting near human settlements. Some left the area completely. Then Vincent's people started using sonic weapons to drive dragons away from mining sites. The weapons made a terrible sound that hurt the dragon's sensitive hearing. Karen saw Ember flinch when he heard it from kilometers away. She confronted Vincent at the mining headquarters. "You are torturing them. Stop using those weapons." "We are simply encouraging them to relocate," Vincent said calmly. "No permanent harm is being done. You do not know that. You have not studied them like I have." Vincent's smile finally disappeared. "I do not need to study them, Miss Phillips. I need to extract resources. That is what I am here to do. If you cannot accept that, perhaps you should request a transfer." Karen returned to the outpost angry and frustrated. Ember sensed her emotions through their bond. He nuzzled her gently, trying to comfort her. That night, Ember could not sleep. He kept lifting his head and looking toward the mountains. "What is wrong?" Karen asked. Ember stood and walked to the door. He looked back at Karen and made an urgent sound. She had learned to read his signals over the years. He wanted her to follow him. Karen got dressed and climbed onto Ember's back. He had grown large enough to carry her now, though they did not do it often. Ember took off, flying through the night sky toward the mountains. They landed near one of the mining sites. Karen heard the sonic weapons before she saw anything. The sound made her teeth hurt. It must have been agony for the dragons. She crept closer and saw something that made her blood boil. Vincent's security forces had cornered a group of young dragons against a cliff. The dragons cried in pain as the sonic weapons hit them. They could not escape. They could not fight back. They just suffered. Karen pulled out her camera and recorded everything. She recorded the dragons' pain. She recorded the security forces laughing. She recorded one young dragon collapse from the stress. Ember roared. The sound echoed through the mountains. The security forces turned, startled. When they saw Ember, some of them raised their weapons. Karen quickly stood between them and her dragon. "Do not even think about it," she said coldly. "I have recorded everything. If anything happens to me or these dragons, this footage goes straight to Earth." The security forces looked at each other uncertainly. Finally, they turned off the sonic weapons and left. The young dragons scrambled away as soon as they could move. Ember watched them go, then gently picked up the one who had collapsed. He carried it carefully to a safe place. Karen sent the footage to Earth that night. She sent it to news agencies, government officials, and animal rights groups. She sent it to everyone she could think of. The response was immediate and massive. The footage went viral. People across human space were outraged. They saw the young dragons suffering and felt sympathy. They saw Ember helping his injured kin and felt admiration. Within days, Ember became famous. He was the dragon who had bonded with a human. The dragon who showed that his kind deserved respect and protection. Vincent Cole was furious. He called Karen to his office and threatened her job. But it was too late. The Colonial Council suspended the mining permits. They ordered an investigation. They sent diplomats to meet the dragons and determine their status. Ember became a celebrity. News crews came to interview Karen and film him. Scientists came to study the bond between human and dragon. Politicians came to make speeches about interspecies cooperation. Through it all, Ember stayed close to Karen. He did not care about fame. He did not understand politics. He only knew that his friend had protected his kind, and he would protect her in return. One night, Karen sat outside with Ember under the stars. She scratched the scales under his chin, and he made a happy rumbling sound. "You know your life would be simpler if you had never rescued me from that cave," she told him. Ember turned his large head and looked at her with intelligent eyes. Through their bond, Karen felt his response clearly. He would not change anything. She was his family, and family stayed together. The war came without warning. Karen was in her lab studying dragon migration patterns when the alarm started. Red lights flashed throughout Outpost Meridian. The emergency speakers crackled to life. "All personnel to evacuation stations. This is not a drill. Hostile forces detected entering the system." Karen ran outside. Other researchers rushed past her, heading for the transport ships. Ember landed beside her, his wings creating a strong wind. He had been hunting in the mountains and flew back as soon as he heard the alarms. Captain Lisa Grant stood near the landing pad, directing evacuations. She was the commander of Valiant, a defense frigate assigned to protect Dracor 7. Her face was grim. "What is happening?" Karen asked. "The Kryn Collective," Lisa said. 3 warships just jumped into the system. They are heading straight for us." Karen felt cold. Everyone knew about the Kryn. They were an alien empire that had been attacking human colonies for months. Their ships were powerful. Their warriors were ruthless. Entire planets had fallen to them. "Get on that transport," Lisa ordered. "We are evacuating all non-military personnel." "What about the dragons?" Karen asked. "The wild ones do not know what is coming. We cannot help them. We barely have enough ships to evacuate our own people." Karen looked at Ember. Through their bond, she felt his concern. The wild dragons were his friends. His family. They had welcomed him even though he spent most of his time with humans. They had taught him to fly and hunt. He could not just leave them. "I am not going," Karen said. Lisa stared at her. "That is not a request, Commander Phillips. Get on the ship." I am staying to help the dragons, Karen insisted. They will be slaughtered if someone does not warn them. That is not our problem, Ember growled. It was a deep, threatening sound that made several nearby soldiers reach for their weapons. Lisa held up her hand to stop them. Your dragon disagrees, Lisa said dryly. He knows what is coming, Karen explained. The Kryn will kill the dragons or enslave them. These crystals they want to mine are the same ones the Kryn use for their weapons. They will not leave any dragons alive to protect them. Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she touched her radio. Valiant, this is Grant. Send a scanner pulse to Sector 7. Look for large biological signatures, she waited. Karen could hear the response through Lisa's earpiece. Confirmed. Multiple large heat signatures in the northern mountains. They are moving toward defensive positions. Lisa looked surprised. The dragons are already responding to the threat? Karen nodded. They can sense the Kryn ships. Dragons are connected to the planet's electromagnetic field. They can feel disturbances in space nearby. Can they fight? I do not know. But they are going to try. Lisa made a decision. All right, stay if you want. But I cannot spare soldiers to protect you. I do not need soldiers. I have Ember. The evacuation transports left. Most of the researchers and civilians went with them. Karen and a handful of volunteers stayed behind. They set up a command post in the outpost and waited. The Kryn ships entered orbit 2 hours later. They were massive dark vessels that blocked out the sun. Smaller fighters launched from them, heading toward the surface. The battle had begun. Valiant engaged the Kryn ships in orbit. Lisa and her crew fought bravely, but they were outnumbered. On the ground, Kryn drop pods began landing near the crystal mining sites. Ember took off toward the mountains. Karen watched him go, feeling scared. She knew he was going to fight. She wanted to stop him, but she also knew she could not. This was his home too. Through their bond, Karen felt what Ember was experiencing. He flew fast, joining a group of wild dragons. There were dozens of them, all different sizes and colors. The largest was an old female with scars across her wings. She seemed to be the leader. Ember communicated with them using dragon sounds and thoughts. Karen could not understand it all, but she got the basic idea. The Kryn were a threat to everyone. The dragons needed to fight. The old female hesitated. Dragons did not usually fight for humans, but Ember showed her memories of Karen helping the young dragons. He showed her how humans and dragons could work together, the old female decided. She roared, and all the other dragons roared with her. Karen watched on her monitor as the dragons engaged the Kryn fighters. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The dragons moved like flowing water, impossible to predict. They breathed lightning that fried Kryn systems. Their scales were so tough that most weapons barely scratched them, but the Kryn had powerful weapons too. Several dragons fell from the sky, wounded or dying. Karen felt each loss through Ember. It hurt him deeply. Captain Grant, Karen radioed. The dragons are helping us. They are taking out Kryn fighters in Sector 4. There was a pause. Then Lisa responded. Confirmed. My sensors show multiple Kryn craft destroyed. Can you coordinate with them? I can try. My bond with Ember lets me sense what he senses. Do it. I am sending tactical data to your station. Pass it to your dragon. Karen closed her eyes and focused on her connection to Ember. She could feel him flying, fighting, coordinating with the other dragons. She pushed information through their bond. Where the Kryn ships were, where human forces needed help, where the fighting was worst, Ember understood. He led his wing of dragons to support human positions. They arrived just in time to stop a Kryn ground assault on the outpost. The aliens retreated, surprised by the coordinated defense. The battle lasted 6 hours. Finally, with heavy losses on both sides, the Kryn ships withdrew. They had not expected such fierce resistance. Valiant was damaged but still flying. About half the outpost was destroyed, and too many dragons had died. Karen ran outside as Ember landed. He was covered in burns and cuts. One of his wings had a hole torn through it. He collapsed on the ground, exhausted. Karen rushed to him, crying, "You stupid brave dragon. You could have died." Ember lifted his head slightly and touched her face with his nose. Through their bond, she felt his response. He would always protect her and her people. That was what family did. Medical teams arrived to help the wounded dragons. The old female dragon landed nearby, watching carefully. She was injured too, with a deep cut across her chest, but she was alive. Karen approached her slowly. The old female could have killed Karen with one bite. Instead, she lowered her head and made a soft sound. Karen understood. It was respect. "Thank you," Karen said. "You saved us all." The old female looked at Ember, then back at Karen. She made another sound, and Karen felt meaning behind it. The dragons would help again if needed, because Ember trusted the humans, and they trusted Ember. Lisa walked up beside Karen. "That was incredible. I have never seen anything like that." "They knew the Kryn from before," Karen explained. "Dragons have long memories. The Kryn have been their enemy for centuries. Can we count on their help again?" Karen looked at Ember, who was being bandaged by a medical team. "If we treat them with respect and honor our alliance, yes. They will fight beside us," Lisa nodded. "Then I need to report this to command. We might have just found our best weapon against the Kryn." That night, Karen sat beside Ember as he recovered. Other dragons rested nearby, forming a protective circle around the outpost. For the first time since the invasion began, Karen felt hope. Humans and dragons fighting together. Maybe they actually had a chance. Karen received her promotion 6 months after the Battle of Dracor 7. She was now Commander Phillips, the first official interspecies ambassador in human history. Her job was to travel to different planets and help establish partnerships between humans and dragons. Ember had healed from his wounds, though scars covered his body. He wore them proudly like medals. He had grown even larger, now the size of a small shuttle. When he spread his wings, they blocked out the sky. Their first mission took them to a planet called Redstone. The colony there was under constant Kryn attacks. Intelligence suggested that dragons lived in the mountain ranges, but no one had made contact with them. Karen and Ember landed near the mountains with a small team. They hiked for 3 days before finding signs of dragons, burn marks on rocks, large claw prints in the mud. Remains of hunted animals too big for anything else to kill. On the 4th day, they found a dragon. Or rather, a dragon found them. She dropped from the sky without warning, landing in front of their group with a ground-shaking thud. She was red as blood, with spikes running down her spine. She was smaller than Ember, but looked more aggressive. She roared at the humans, warning them to leave. Ember stepped forward. He roared back, not in challenge, but in greeting. The red dragon looked surprised to see another dragon traveling with humans. She circled Ember slowly, sniffing him, examining his scars. Karen watched nervously. If this went wrong, people could die. But Ember remained calm. He made soft sounds, trying to communicate. The red dragon tilted her head, listening. Finally, she made a decision. She turned and walked toward the mountains. Then she looked back at Ember, clearly expecting him to follow. Ember looked at Karen. Through their bond, Karen understood. The red dragon was willing to take them to her clan, but only Ember and Karen. The other humans had to wait. "Stay here," Karen told her team. "We will be back." "Commander, that is too dangerous," one soldier protested. "Probably," Karen agreed. "But it is our only chance." She climbed onto Ember's back. The red dragon watched and made a sound that might have been amusement. Then she took off. Ember followed, carrying Karen into the mountains. They flew for an hour before reaching a massive cave system. Dozens of dragons lived there, all different shades of red and orange. They looked suspicious when Ember and Karen arrived. Some growled. Others moved to block the entrance. The red dragon spoke to them in dragon language. Karen could not understand the sounds, but she felt Ember's response through their bond. He was showing them his memories. The battle against the Kryn, how humans and dragons fought together, how Karen had helped protect his kind. An enormous old dragon emerged from the deepest cave. He was covered in scars, with one eye missing and part of his tail gone. But he radiated power and authority. This was clearly the leader. The old dragon approached Ember. He was twice Ember's size and had seen many more battles. He examined Ember's scars, then looked at Karen. His remaining eye was intelligent and calculating. Karen slid off Ember's back and bowed. She had learned that dragons respected displays of honor. The old dragon made a rumbling sound deep in his chest. Then he did something unexpected. He lowered his head, bringing his face level with Karen's. He sniffed her, his hot breath making her hair blow back. Karen stood perfectly still, her heart pounding. Through her bond with Ember, Karen felt a new sensation. The old dragon was projecting his thoughts, and Ember was translating them for her. The old dragon's name was Scar. His clan had been fighting the Kryn for generations. Many dragons had died. The survivors were few and desperate. Scar wanted to know if the humans could be trusted. Would they honor their alliance after the war ended, or would they try to control the dragons like the Kryn had? Karen spoke, knowing Ember would help Scar understand. We do not want to control anyone. We want partners, friends. The Kryn are strong, but together we are stronger. Help us and we will help you. Fight beside us and we will fight beside you. This I promise. Scar studied her for a long moment. Then he made his decision. He roared, and every dragon in the cave roared with him. The alliance was formed. Over the next few months, Karen and Ember traveled to 6 more worlds. Each mission was different. Some dragons welcomed them immediately. Others took weeks of negotiation. A few refused entirely, too traumatized by past experiences with other species. On New Terra, they found dragons who had been enslaved by the Kryn for decades. These dragons were broken, afraid of all bipedal creatures. Ember spent weeks with them, showing them through dragon communication that not all humanoids were enemies. Slowly, carefully, some began to trust, but there were dangers beyond the Kryn. Some humans did not like the alliance. They saw dragons as animals that should serve humanity, not partner with it. Karen received death threats. Someone sabotaged Ember's food, making him sick for days. A bomb was planted at one of the dragon sanctuaries, though it was found before it exploded. The worst incident happened on Gateway Station, a major human hub. Karen was there for a diplomatic meeting with Colonial Council members. Ember waited on the landing platform, too large to fit inside the station's corridors. Karen was leaving the meeting when she heard screams. She ran toward the sound and found chaos. 3 men in masks were shooting at civilians. They were shouting about keeping humanity pure and eliminating alien threats. Karen pulled out her sidearm, but she was not fast enough. One of the attackers saw her and fired. The shot hit her in the shoulder, spinning her around. She fell, pain exploding through her body. Through their bond, Ember felt everything. He roared so loudly that the entire station shook. He crashed through the exterior wall, not caring about damage or safety protocols. He reached Karen in seconds, placing his massive body between her and the attackers. The attackers fired at Ember, but their bullets bounced off his scales. Ember could have killed them easily. Karen felt his rage through their connection, but she also felt his restraint. He knew that killing humans would hurt their cause. Security forces arrived and arrested the attackers. Medical teams rushed Karen to the infirmary. The bullet had missed anything vital, but she had lost blood. Ember refused to leave her side. He pressed his head against the glass of the medical bay, making worried sounds. When Karen woke up, the first thing she saw was Ember's large eye looking through the window. She smiled weakly and touched the glass. Through their bond, she sent him comfort and love. He had saved her again. The Colonial Council investigated the attack. They discovered that the attackers were part of a larger extremist group that wanted to end the Dragon Alliance. The Council condemned the attack strongly and increased protections for Dragon ambassadors. But Karen knew the danger would never completely go away. There would always be people who feared change, people who saw dragons as threats instead of friends. We need to keep going, Karen told Ember when she was released from medical care. We need to show everyone that this alliance works. Ember agreed. They returned to their missions with renewed determination. They visited schools, showing children that dragons were intelligent and kind. They helped coordinate military operations, proving that human dragon teams were effective. They attended ceremonies where fallen dragons were honored alongside fallen soldiers. Karen faced criticism from Earth authorities who thought she cared more about dragons than humans. In one heated meeting, an admiral accused her of treason. I have seen more humans die in this war than you have, Karen replied coldly. I have held their hands as they took their last breaths. I have written letters to their families. Do not tell me I do not care about humanity. I care about humanity enough to know that our survival depends on working with others, not dominating them. Ember had taught her about loyalty, about sacrifice, about looking past appearances to see the person inside. He was a dragon, but he had more honor than many humans she had met. Years passed. The alliance grew stronger. Karen and Ember became legends. People told stories about the woman and her dragon who changed the war, who proved that different species could stand together. But the war was far from over, and their greatest challenge still lay ahead. The war reached its final stage 5 years after it began. Karen was now Admiral Phillips, commanding a joint fleet of human ships and dragon wings. She was 40 years old, with gray streaks in her hair and scars from half a dozen battles, but her bond with Ember remained as strong as the day they met in that cave. The Kryn had gathered their forces for one massive push. They were targeting the Nexus Gate, a stable wormhole that connected dozens of star systems. If the Kryn controlled it, they could strike at Earth itself. Every available ship and every willing dragon converged on the gate for what everyone knew would be the final battle. Karen stood on the bridge of Resolute, a massive carrier that served as her flagship. Around her, monitors showed the gathering forces, 300 human ships, over 2,000 dragons from 20 different worlds, and facing them the largest Kryn fleet anyone had ever seen. Ember flew beside Resolute, leading the dragon formations. He was magnificent, his scales gleaming in the light of distant stars. Other dragons followed him willingly. He had proven himself in battle after battle. Even Scar, the old dragon from Redstone, deferred to Ember's tactical sense. All ships report ready, Karen, second in command, reported. Dragon wings in position. Karen touched the communicator that connected her to Ember. It was a special device that amplified their bond, letting her send complex thoughts. "Ready, old friend?" She felt his response. "Always ready." Together to the end, the battle began when the Kryn fleet opened fire. Space lit up with weapons fire. Ships exploded. Dragons fell. The fighting was intense and brutal. Karen directed her forces looking for weaknesses in the Kryn formation. Ember led strikes against their capital ships, his dragons moving like schools of fish, impossible to target effectively. Hours passed. Both sides took heavy casualties. Karen watched good people die on her monitors. She felt dragons she had met perish through Ember's grief, but they were holding the line. The Kryn could not break through. Then the sensors detected something new. A massive Kryn ship jumped in behind their lines. It was different from other Kryn vessels, covered in strange devices that hummed with terrible energy. "What is that?" Karen demanded. Her science officer worked frantically. "Some kind of quantum weapon. It is charging up. Admiral, if that thing fires at the Nexus Gate, it will collapse the wormhole and create a chain reaction. Everything within 10 light years will be destroyed." Karen felt cold. 10 light years included 3 colonies, millions of people, countless dragons, and her fleet. "How long until it fires?" 20 minutes. Can we destroy it?" "Its shields are too strong." "Nothing we have can penetrate them in time," Karen thought fast. "Can we disable it from inside?" The science officer looked doubtful. "Maybe, but someone would have to get through the shields, enter the ship, and manually override the weapon. It would be a suicide mission. They would never get out before it exploded." Karen stood up. "Prepare a shuttle." "I am going," her crew protested. Her officers argued. But Karen silenced them all. "I am not sending anyone else to die on a mission like this. Prepare the shuttle now." She ran to the hangar bay. Ember was already there, waiting. Through their bond, he had felt her decision. He knew what she planned to do. "No," Karen said firmly when she saw him. "You are not coming. Someone needs to lead the dragons after I am gone." Ember roared. It shook the entire hangar. Through their bond, Karen felt his absolute refusal. They had been together for 15 years. They had fought side by side in dozens of battles. He was not letting her face death alone. Karen knew she could not change his mind. And truthfully, she did not want to face this alone either. "Okay, together then." Like always. They took a small assault craft, fast and maneuverable. Ember flew beside it, providing cover as they raced toward the Kryn weapon platform. Enemy fighters tried to stop them. Ember burned through them with lightning breath. Human fighters, seeing what was happening, provided escort. They reached the platform. Ember used his full strength to blast open an entry port. Karen flew the craft inside. They landed in a corridor and Karen jumped out with her weapons ready. Kryn soldiers rushed them immediately. Karen fought with everything she had. Ember was unstoppable, his lightning turning the corridor into a death trap for the enemy. They pushed deeper into the ship, following the energy readings to the weapons control center. Karen found the override console. She worked frantically, her fingers flying over alien controls. Ember stood guard at the door, fighting off wave after wave of Kryn troops. He was wounded in a dozen places, but he refused to fall. "Got it," Karen shouted. She activated the override. The weapon began to destabilize. They had 5 minutes before it exploded. They ran back toward their shuttle. but part of the corridor had collapsed from the fighting. The exit was blocked. Karen tried to find another route, but there was not enough time. She looked at Ember. Through their bond, she felt his acceptance. They had known this might happen. At least they were together. "I am sorry," Karen whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I should have left you in that cave. You could have had a good life." Ember touched his head to hers gently. Through their connection, she felt his response clearly.
He had lived the best life.
Because he lived it with her. She was his family, his friend, his purpose. He would not change a single moment. Karen hugged his massive head, sobbing. This was it. The end. Then she heard a roar from outside the ship. The hull ripped open like paper. Scar appeared, his remaining eye blazing with determination. A dozen other dragons flew with him. They grabbed Karen and Ember with their claws, pulling them from the collapsing ship. They flew fast, racing against time. Behind them, the weapon platform exploded. The blast wave caught them, sending dragons tumbling through space, but they were far enough away. They survived. Scar carried Karen back to Resolute. Other dragons supported Ember, who was too injured to fly. Medical teams rushed to help them both. The Kryn fleet, seeing their weapon destroyed and their champion dragons unbroken, lost their will to fight. They retreated. The battle was over. The war was won. Karen spent 3 weeks in medical care. So did Ember. When they both recovered enough, they attended ceremony after ceremony. Medals, speeches, celebrations. Karen smiled and shook hands and said the right things. But inside, she was tired. So tired. "I want to go home," she told Ember one night. Home was Dracor 7, the place where they met. The planet returned to them after being rebuilt from the war. Karen retired from the military. She used her savings and awards to buy land in the mountains. She built a simple house with large doors that Ember could fit through. They created a sanctuary for dragons who had been hurt by the war, orphaned hatchlings, wounded warriors, dragons who needed time and peace to heal. Karen cared for them all, and Ember helped teach them about trust and safety. Years passed peacefully. Karen grew older. Her hair turned completely gray. Her body ached from old wounds. But she was happy. Ember remained by her side, sleeping outside her door every night, greeting her every morning. Children from the nearby colony visited the sanctuary on field trips. They listened wide-eyed as Karen told stories about the war and the Alliance. They played with the young dragons, learning that different species could be friends. Ember never took a dragon mate. Other dragons courted him, but he always declined. Karen asked him about it once. "Do you regret not having a family of your own?" Through their bond, she felt his answer. She was his family. The dragons in the sanctuary were his children. The bond they shared was deeper than anything else could be. Karen understood. She had never married either. There had been people interested over the years, but no one understood her the way Ember did. No one shared the connection they had. On her 65th birthday, Karen sat on her porch watching the sunset. Ember lay curled around the house, his massive body warm against the evening chill. Young dragons played in the field nearby, chasing each other and practicing their flying. "We did good, did we not?" Karen said softly. Ember rumbled in agreement. Through their bond, she felt his contentment, his love, his gratitude for the life they shared. Karen knew she was getting old. She knew her time was limited, but she was not afraid. When her time came, Ember would be there. He had stayed by her side through battles and peace, through danger and safety. A wild baby dragon who found a human woman in a cave and chose to stay forever. Their bond had changed the galaxy. It had proven that different species could work together. That friendship could cross any boundary. That love was not limited by biology or appearance. But more than that, their bond had given them both something precious. A family, a home, a purpose. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Karen reached out and touched Ember's scales. He pressed back against her hand just like he had that first day in the cave. "Forever," Karen whispered. Through their bond, Ember's response was clear and certain. "Forever."